Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. I'm Stephen Cabral, board-certified naturopathic doctor, and today on our Friday review, I'm excited to get started. I'm excited to bring you although this is 3 different items today, they really all relate. And that's the nice thing, is that I'll try to tie this together and show you how the nutritional supplement, the diet, and the recipe I have for you all work together. And let's start the tone off right. And this is it's called the groundbreaking Alzheimer's prevention diet. So this is new research that was literally just done. It was done at Weill Cornell Medicine, and it was done headed up at least by Dr. Richard Isaacson. So one of the things that this study did was it looked at a cross-section of people who are not getting Alzheimer's and those people that are. And what they found were there were certain correlations with those people, now again, the opposite of this diet, that are doing certain things that could cause Alzheimer's. Again, we don't know exactly. There's certainly a lot of factors that go into it, like heavy metal accumulation, viruses, again, aluminum, like all sorts of different things in the body that can accumulate that can also cause some type of amyloid plaque or actually neural degeneration inside the brain. But what this diet actually did was it looked at people who just don't seem to be getting Alzheimer's. So again, keep in mind, I do genetic testing, which actually shows who is more likely to get Alzheimer's. And then if you're more likely, it doesn't mean you're going to get it. It just means that you actually have to do specific things like lower your saturated fat intake, lower specific things, because we know these things in certain people can't be metabolized as well. So that's why there is no one diet for every person. But again, like you can just go to stephencabral.com/store, take a look at the genetic tests that I offer, obviously see if it's the right fit for you, but you can actually just look at what specific allele you are. You can't find out this type of information through 23andMe, but you can when you use a real functional medicine-based lab. And that will tell you for sure, like, okay, these foods are better for you, these vitamins might be more deficient, you might have a harder time with phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification, you might have the MTHFR gene mutation, which means that you can't metabolize folic acid and other B vitamins as well, which might mean that you need to supplement with those, and then that will lead to less inflammation in the arteries. So again, amazing test. You only have to do it once in your lifetime. I'm doing it with kids right now because, again, you'll know then for life what your kids are more susceptible to. It's amazing stuff. And again, a little bit of a tangent there. Let's get back on track. So this Alzheimer's prevention diet, I'm going to read it to you right now. This is what they found, that people who eat fewer than 2,000 calories per day, so typically 1,900 calories or lower, have less chance for getting Alzheimer's. And that's because the lower calorie intake, essentially this is it. When you put less food in your body, you create less free radical damage or less free radicals, and you create less beta amyloid plaques, basically, that can build up in your body. So less toxins, because all food has to be metabolized, which creates toxins from there. And that was shown in and of itself that the typical American diet is about 2,600 calories per day. And they're looking at Okinawan and longer-lived populations just without Alzheimer's, and they're finding that more of the long-lived people, which I've talked about before, they eat fewer calories, and that's just basically the bottom line. Now, you need enough to sustain yourself, but you can't really go over that limit, which means obviously if you're at a leaner body weight, well, you're less likely to then be at risk for Alzheimer's as well, because the correlation between the two, eating too much and the higher body type or higher caloric intake, leading to more body weight as well. So another thing they found was trying to keep your carbohydrates around 100 to 120 grams per day. Now, this is very, very arbitrary because, again, like which type of carbs are we looking at? You can eat a whole lot more carbohydrates than 100 to 120 if you're an ectomorph body type or a Vata body type, and also if they're coming from vegetables and like low glycemic berries. But if you're eating a lot of starches, of course, you will want to keep that limited to the 100 and 120 that they do have in the study. And just for a little bit of measures, a small sweet potato is about 30 calories or so. Same with a small banana. So you can get a lot of calories within that, especially if you're breaking up between all of your meals. At each of your meals, you can basically have, about 40 carbs at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's really not that hard. Very, very simple. Very straightforward way to do that. And I'll show you in my recipe at the end on how to do that as well. So one more thing is that, now, again, I've been talking about this and I will continue to talk about it. If there's one important thing you can do, it's your 12-hour overnight fast. They're now proving that in almost every study for longevity and for disease prevention, all of these things. They're saying, well, stop at 5 o'clock for dinner and then don't eat until 5 the next morning. it's more realistic to stop eating at 6 o'clock at night, maybe 6:37, and then not eat until 7 a.m. the next day, because most people aren't waking up at 5 a.m. and they're not finishing dinner at 5 p.m. So my way, I just feel, is a little bit more realistic to tell people stop at 6 or 7, and then the next morning you'll just start back up again at like 7 o'clock or so for breakfast, or 8 o'clock, an hour after essentially you wake up. You have some water when you first wake up, a little bit of lemon in it. And again, amazing. They don't talk about the reasons why. I've talked about it in the past. I won't, rehash those again today, but you're giving your body time to detoxify. And again, they don't even talk about that. They just say, hey, we just found out this thing. You should fast overnight for 12 hours. You'll get great results and you'll be less likely to get disease and Alzheimer's. Well, we know in natural medicine why that works. And conventional medicine as well. They don't talk about it. They don't teach it because they're not talking about nutrition, of course. And a couple more things, just a few more. Protein. Try to keep protein around 10% to 35% of your calories because of the amino acids and the B vitamins, everything that you get from that. But I think this is a little overstated as well, because I've seen a lot of research as well not to really bring your protein above 20 to 25%. And the reason is because of the toxicity in a lot of the proteins. Proteins, the hardest to digest and break down as well, just from the thermogenic effect of food, and also the toxic byproducts that can go with a lot of heavy proteins. So I would actually say this is one that they need to do a little bit more research on, because again, in natural medicine and also in genetics, we know that if you increase your protein too high, ammonia buildup, toxicity from meats, toxicity from fish, from all of these different things are not going to be great as well. So maybe if we lived in a vacuum, the world was perfect, we could increase our protein up to maybe a third of our calories, but it doesn't look like that right now. So again, but I still agree with the recommendation, 10%, 20% of your diet can come from protein. They say up to 35%. I haven't seen any real research on that, and I would actually disagree with that high of a number, but I do understand what they're saying, that they're looking for amino acids and they're looking for proteins that are going to help regenerate the body. But keep it in mind too that those amino acids and vitamins can also come from every food, and not just, meaning like your carbohydrates as well, and not just your proteins. They're saying to limit your saturated fats to around 5 to 6% of your diet, even though your fats could be 10 or 20% or maybe 30% of your diet total, more like 20 to 30% of your diet for your fats. So, this goes, again, like in the face of a lot of paleo-based diets. And to be honest with you, I get a little worried about a lot of the top functional medicine doctors and a lot of the top fad diets really saying high saturated fat diets are the way to go. I think they're going to be eating their words. They really are. I think so in about 5 years. And I just don't want you to fall prey to those particular people. And I respect a lot of those people that are saying that right now. They're writing books on fat, and they're people that I looked up to a decade ago. And it's not that I don't look up to them today. It's not like I look down upon them. But the problem is that these diets are not healthy when they're that high in saturated fat. There's real, I know that you can cherry pick studies to show that saturated fats are dangerous for a lot of people, but I could show you those same, 1,000 other studies that show it creates inflammation in a lot of people. And I went over that with some of the keto-based diets and coconut oil as well. It's just not an all for one. And if you're getting 30, 40, 50% of your diet from saturated fats, I would really stop and think about that. There's not a lot of great sound research on that, especially when those saturated fats are coming from heavy meats and bacon a lot of the time, and really questionable stuff. And so I just want you to at least, give it some thought and do a little research on your own. I won't tell you exactly, what to eat and what not to eat. I want to be an educator. I want to be a teacher. I want to help guide you onto this path and follow better nutrition. But I can assure you that if you're eating that much saturated fat, not a good idea. And they are showing now that it does increase Alzheimer's. Now, what are some of the other things that you can add to your diet? Well, fish, right? Omega-3s. So this has been shown now over and over that omega-3s decreases inflammation, and the brain is predominantly fat, and it's great for the brain. The other thing is turmeric. Turmeric's another anti-inflammatory. And the anti-inflammatory, but not only that, it has a lot of antioxidants, which is why they're showing maybe a little bit of dark chocolate for some people can also help because of the flavonoids and all of the different great, again, antioxidant potential. So antioxidant means it breaks down or it stops oxidation. And when your brain oxidizes, well, it can create these types of issues as well with neural pathways, neurosynapses, just basically your body's ability to pass thoughts, we'll say, from one neural synapse to another. So it's, again, it's great. I know we went a little long on this, but I just feel like teaching people now, like, you don't get Alzheimer's overnight. I know a lot of people think that that's what happens. It starts in what? Your early childhood, and then just keeps going, because what happens is the body doesn't degenerate overnight. And the nice thing is you can start to reverse a lot of these things starting today. So start now. Again, like, I was laughing when I read this diet, because I know there's a lot of health practitioners listening to this podcast, and you're probably saying to yourself, well, this sounds just like the Mediterranean diet. And if you said that, you are absolutely correct. This is a Mediterranean diet. They are now once again suggesting a Mediterranean diet. And I just find it like almost laughable, because the Mediterranean diet is how the majority of people should be eating. It's the majority of the foundation for how I prescribe diets. And essentially, although I customize them, of course, that's your starting point. Like, it's a smaller meal. You're eating some fish as your protein, or if you're vegan, you're having some beans instead, or legumes, or whatever it is that you might be eating, lentils too. And again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, and you can absolutely eat that way for sure. And the majority of my diet is vegetarian, vegan based, but you can get a lot of benefit from fish if you eat fish. And if you're saying, okay, well, olive oil, great. Olive oil is a nice unsaturated fat. And so when you look at that, you say, well, these studies have already been done, and now they're being applied to something like Alzheimer's. So again, just smaller meals, not too often, mostly vegetables, and then you can argue, 10% over whatever type of protein that you would like, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, or paleo style. And again, but when it's down to that small amount, then really it's not too big of a deal either way, okay? So the next one I want to get into, and I'll make these two a little shorter because I obviously went long on Alzheimer's just because of the importance of it. And, I enjoy teaching these types of things as well, so I tend to talk a lot. But the next one is a product, and again, I won't go deep into it. It's a product I use a lot in my practice. It's called Pure Omega. Now, Pure Omega, it's a liquid fish oil. Now, I like this product, and I'll tell you why. One is you don't have to try to break down the capsules, and the capsules can be very difficult for a lot of people to break down. But the other is that it's almost tasteless. It's a clean, third-party tested, zero heavy metals in this product. And most people can tolerate it. It has no kind of like fish burps or anything nasty like that. It, again, has almost no taste, which means most people have no issues with it whatsoever. And it's much higher in EPA than DHA, which means it's much more anti-inflammatory than most fish oils out there. It doesn't cost more. It gives you about a month and a half worth of servings in it. And really, it's what I'm recommending to most people, unless you are pregnant and nursing. And then I might recommend one that's higher in DHA, and that's because of neurological health of your child. So a great product. I'll link it up in the show notes. Just go to stevencabral.com/podcast, and then you can just go to this episode, and you'll be able to see the exact one that I recommend and just a link to it. Of course, always the lowest possible price as well. That's something that I always do, and I feel very strongly about, is trying to bring you the lowest possible price for everything, whether it's lab tests or supplements, or because I know there's so much out there to buy, right? In order to stay healthy, it's really tough. We need to arm ourselves with the best stuff. And so again, if we can get it at the best possible price, absolutely do that. Never purchase any supplements on Amazon. I'll get onto that in a future review, but it is dangerous stuff. I'll just say that right now, and I'll review that in a future show. And the last one today is on, this goes back to it as well, but one of my favorite things during the warm weather. So I love during the winter, it's obviously really cold in Boston where I work and live. And it's brutal. And I've lived here my entire life. And I've, a little bit in Rhode Island as well. But January, February, and March are just tough. And so when I travel, I typically go to the West Coast, California, or a little further west than that. And during that time when I'm away, I love having acai bowls. And I started doing that a couple of years ago. And it's basically like a smoothie bowl. Like it's a smoothie bowl, but it's a little thicker so that you have to eat it with a spoon. Well, been doing a lot of them this summer as well because my kids love them. I love them. So does my wife. So we'll make them. We have guests over. We'll make them for them as well. And the thing is, it's really healthy eating, especially after a workout. Like, it's just amazing. Or you can do it any time. And it's kind of like, just a fun dessert treat, but it's a smoothie. And so I'm going to share with you one of my recipes right now. So I use 1 cup of mixed berries. Typically, it's like blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries. And so they're frozen. We throw that in the blender. We throw in it 1 packet of the Sambazon acai bowl, so the acai packets. And that gives you the acai, and that typically always comes frozen. So we put that in the blender with the other cup of the mixed berries. We had just enough almond milk or coconut milk. The unsweetened vanilla is what we use, carrageenan free. And then we blend that up. And usually you have to use like one of those hand tamper things to just make sure that it's blending at that low speed to make it nice and thick. And essentially it makes an ice cream. Now, on top of that, and so typically if it's post-workout or if it's my smoothie of the day, I always use my all-in-one powder. And I do that because if I have to swallow less capsules, then that's great. So the all-in-one powder has your multivitamins, your minerals, your electrolytes, and it's a vegan-based protein. So it's pea and rice-based. And it's all clean, it's gluten-free, dairy-free, and GMO-free. So great stuff. And of course, I give my kids a little bit of that as well. Now, on top though, this is where you can get really creative. So for toppings, like I get inspired when I'm on Instagram and I see these people with these like amazing smoothie bowls or acai bowls. And I typically, this is what I do. I slice up one banana and I just kind of like put that in a nice little arrangement on top. I add about 2 tablespoons of the Udi's Au Naturel, it's called, gluten-free granola. And so it's just toasted oats, essentially, is what it is. And then I might drizzle a little bit of raw honey, just a little bit, like maybe like 1 teaspoon over it. And it just makes this amazing bowl that you like really look forward to eating. But when you think about it, what are you really eating? Well, you're eating 1 cup of mixed berries, so really high in antioxidants. You're eating an acai packet, which is only like maybe a half a cup. And that's a super powerful, very high ORAC, very high antioxidants berry from the Amazon. That you typically would never get around here. And then besides that, just a touch of almond milk, and then I put in some of my vegan-based protein powder with just a whole multivitamin and all of those great things. So, and then on top you can slice strawberries instead, you can slice kiwis, you can sprinkle some more berries, I've seen people put bee pollen, like all these amazing things on it. But now here's how it ties into the Alzheimer prevention diet. Is that this is also Mediterranean style. It's very high in antioxidants, and this is like a superfood in a bowl. It's an amazing thing. I love doing them. I actually get, disappointed when it gets really cold in the wintertime in December or so in Boston, and, we just don't eat as many of those because it's obviously colder weather. So hopefully you enjoyed that recipe. I'll certainly link it up, or I'll put it on Instagram for sure during this day's podcast to give you my specific recipe. That's the one I've been using, but you can make a mango one. You can make any flavor you want. It doesn't even have to be acai. You simply take your favorite smoothie recipe and you just add that to a blender with just less water, and you just hand tamp it and you make sure it just blends up and it makes this really nice ice cream consistency. And of course, you can add a banana to any of them to make it a little bit thicker as well. So hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. It was one of my favorites. I always enjoy talking about, just pulling everything together. This doesn't have to be difficult. The healthiest diet out there is a Mediterranean style diet. Now, you can have it be completely vegan. You can add a little bit of fish, maybe a little egg, but a little bit of fish is the main part of the Mediterranean. Or you can add a little bit of meat if that's your prerogative. And there's no problem with that as well. But it still comes back to the components where that's only a small portion of your diet. The rest is high in antioxidants. And very healthy, unsaturated fats. And then, when we're talking about omega-3s, well, that's kind of like your fail-safe. It's more of an anti-inflammatory. And then recipes like this just make it fun, because you have to keep it fun. You have to keep it interesting as well. So thank you, everyone, for tuning into today's Cabral Concept. I hope you tune in this weekend as we're going over all of your questions that you submitted throughout the past week or two. I'll be answering those. And again, as always, please do feel free to share this episode with anyone you believe it could help.